Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides.
This podcast episode is brought to you by The Inner Circle, your place to learn astrology in community with the masters and transform your life in the process.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to your weekly astrological weather. I am so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for tuning into the weekly weather. If you did not happen to catch the 2023 forecast panel that we just had on Saturday, don't worry, it's not too late to sign up. You can sign up at astrologyhub.com/2023. It's entirely free. The event was awesome. We had 6 different astrologers as panelists, all discussing the astrology of 2023, how you can work with it, where there might be challenging times in the year, where there's going to be lots of flow and ease, what things to focus on when. And it was a very dynamic event. Would love to have you there. And also, our guest today, Bear, is delivering one of the free by sign reads of 2023. So we're, in addition to the panel that we did Saturday, every day for the next few days, you're going to be receiving a breakdown of the 2023 weather for your sun and your rising sign. So if you also want to get those, make sure you sign up. Those are also entirely free. And Ryver is one of the astrologers that's going to be sharing by sign. Bear, which sign are you covering?
Aries. Very exciting stuff for Aries next year.
All right. So make sure you sign up for that again. And you're going to be totally prepared to ride the astrological currents of next year after you participate in this event. And I am so happy to be introducing you to Bear here today. He is making his Astrology Hub debut during this weekly weather. I'm going to read his bio for you because he has a very impressive background and we're just so honored to have him here today. Bear is a consulting and lecturing astrologer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's winner of OPA's Most Promising Astrologer Award in 2018. Bear has taught with the Portland School of Astrology and lectured at NORWAC in 2020 and 2021, as well as ESAR in 2022. He holds certifications in Hellenistic, electional, and horary astrology, and has offered his time as a mentor through AFAN. He helps his clients hone strategies for grounded growth and embodied empowerment by bringing them back to the basics of bravery, authenticity, sovereignty, courage, and stewardship. When he's not talking stars, you can find him climbing rocks and playing guitar. Bear, can you come and play music for us sometime?
Yes, once this arm is healed up again and I get this left hand back, I'm happy to play some campfire songs for folks.
Nice. Did you do that climbing rocks?
No, sadly, I did that in my very last stint of side hustling in restaurants. My arm. Don't put your arm inside a refrigerator if someone closes the door.
It's good sage advice. Yes.
Yes. If you happen to have Mars transiting through your perfected house this year, be wary of accidents. Take a little extra time, slow down, learn from my mistake, don't repeat it.
All right. Awesome, Bear. Well, we are here to talk about the weekly weather. I'm really grateful you're here. So let's dive into it. What would you say is the theme of this week?
So in a nutshell, I wrote deep breath, go. But I also wrote like this little poem, if I may. It's quite short. I think this really kind of captures the essence of it. Wake up from the dream. You've grabbed the pearl of wisdom. Wake up from the dream. Remember where you came from. Wake up from the dream. The time for sleep is over. Share what you've got to give. The world needs the hope your heart is holding.
I almost want to make you do that again or ask you to do that again. Can you please read that to us again?
Yeah, I can do that again. Wake up from the dream. You've grabbed the pearl of wisdom. Wake up from the dream. Remember where you came from. Wake up from the dream. The time for sleep is over. Share what you've got to give. The world needs the hope your heart is holding.
Bear, do you agree that we are in a new chapter? Like we've sort of officially turned a corner from where we've been. You know, when you're saying wake up from the dream, wake up from the dream, that we're in new territory in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, we'll have to, as astrology always does, we look back a little bit so that we can look forward. During 2022, we had the exact conjunction of Jupiter in Pisces and with Neptune in Pisces. And I gave a talk at ESAR. I was actually talking about the Jupiter-Neptune cycle. Those two planets only come together in Pisces once every 165 years. And if we think about Neptune as these dreams and ideals, and Jupiter as hopes or our, maybe not ambitions, but our ideas about expansion, those daydreaming kind of qualities or visionary qualities, then we've all kind of been in this period the last year and then some where I've kind of imagined it like being in this hot springs where we're just submerged in our dreams and our hopes and all of these little whisperings from the ancestors, from our deepest purpose. And Jupiter's about to leave Pisces. That's it. This is like the last moment of gathering those visions, those little nuggets of hope and inspiration, and then we've got to tuck them away and take them with us for the future. As Jupiter leaves Pisces, I think this week, the reason I say wake up from the dream, Jupiter's going to move into Aries within the next week. So this is the last one, and I'll talk a bit about Thursday in particular for this week. But this is really setting us up too for, Saturn's going to move into Pisces. We're getting the last little bit of Neptune moving through Pisces before it moves into Aries. That's a bit far off in the future, but it's this moment where by the end of 2023, it is an entirely new chapter of like the 21st century. I think folks who are, in their 30s and older might kind of remember the feeling of the aughts and the way that 2002 and 3 still kind of felt like the late 90s. And then somewhere in the 2010s, it didn't. And I think we're on the precipice of another one of those big shifts where the dreams that we're nurturing and that we decide to pursue are going to really lay the foundation for how we experience this next new awakening.
There, I've had the experience in this last year of catching some of those ideals and those dreams and those visions, and then feeling pretty discouraged by reality. It's like, whoa, that's what's possible. And here's what's happening. And feeling sort of disheartened at times by the vastness of that gap. What do you say to that? Is the astrology pointing us in a direction where we're going to be able to start making those dreams and ideals actual reality here that we're experiencing on this planet? Or is it going to stay in those, sort of Neptunian dreamy realms?
I think, the cosmos always presents us with choices. We can absolutely choose to stay in the dreamy realm. And, I think what that would look like is choosing to ignore that gap, choosing to pretend like you're already there or it's not that big a distance to traverse, escaping into the parts of your life that seem like they're close but aren't really there yet. So that could be, I really want to experience relaxation in my body, and no judgment on any of these things I throw out, except maybe towards myself a little bit here. I really want to feel ease and relaxation in my body, so I turn on the Great British Baking Show instead of doing my foam rolling at the end of the night. Well, I feel kind of relaxed, but my body really wished that I had foam rolled. And so, that's one small choice where I think you have a lot more agency than some of the other bigger systemic things. But to your point, I think that gap, one of the things that I like to remind clients of is that dissatisfaction in moments where we feel angry, like anger is an indication that there's a boundary that's been violated or a need that's going unmet for a long time. And so that sense of disillusionment, dissatisfaction, discouragement, it's an indication that that dream that we have really matters. You know, when we dream about like, I want to maybe summit Denali one day or Mount McKinley in the colonizer language. That's a dream of mine that like, it would be great if I could, but I probably won't because it doesn't actually captivate me. I don't feel discouraged about the fact that I'm not already pursuing that goal in some real way. But with astrology, every time I don't post a post, I feel that sense of discouragement, that gap between the dream I have. You know, and I'm just speaking to me because I don't want to throw shade at anybody in this podcast. But I think that's some of the space that we've got opportunity to investigate. I think part of that grabbing those hopes and dreams is going like, ooh, okay, I have a hope and dream of getting to the top of that mountain, and there could be an avalanche. So I have to face the gap between my skill set now and what can I do to address that. This week is giving us some opportunities to find the specific details where we do have room to make the gap between the dream and reality a little bit smaller.
Wow, I love that. You're basically saying if we do feel that disillusionment at where reality is now, that's a signpost that we actually care about that thing. And it's just reinforcing that there is some sort of mastery or work, Saturn words, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we need to do in order to bridge the gap. It would be foolish to look up at the top of the mountain, totally out of shape and not like prepared for the climb, right? So there's things that need to be done in order for us to get there, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means we need to be aware of the reality of what it's going to take in order to do it well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. That's reassuring.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't want to Pollyanna or to, get clouds in the sky, although I do see lots of silver linings in many places. But I think, the universe is always inviting us into where we're supposed to be. I think that's the magic of astrology, at least the way that I understand it and the way I practice it. Astrology is always saying, you're supposed to be here right now. You're supposed to have this conversation right now. That's the book you were meant to grab in that bookshop. And if we're always saying yes to those invitations, including the invitation that is discouragement and disillusionment, like I won't go off on the whole story of Buddha's enlightenment because people can find that very easily online. But the story of Buddha's awakening starts with him being really dissatisfied and then going and trying to figure out like, why do I hate this so much? Why does life suck? Why is there so much suffering? So if you're having that moment where you're going like, this sucks, I really don't like this, then congratulations. That means that especially with some of the social injustice and environmental injustice that we see in the world, I would especially think that moments, particularly this December and approaching 2023, if you're going like, man, I really wish I'd been composting more, I thought we'd be somewhere different. That's all indications that you are choosing healing, choosing awakening. I got some valued projections and judgments in there, so I'll kind of leave it at that. But I think it is a really positive sign, even if it's a painful, uncomfortable.
Thank you. Okay, let's dive into the astrology of the week and why you're saying what you're saying, and maybe we can start with Monday and just walk through the week.
Yeah. So Monday, higher intensity days, a little more friction, a little more strife. There's one kind of overarching or a dynamic that's going on in the skies that whole week with Venus and Mercury both being out of balance. Now, what does that mean in English? Our communication faculties, the way that we're articulating things, making our plans, getting strategic, and the way that we're relating to other people is just like, it's not flipping the script, it's totally off the script. It forgot where the script is, and it's just making it up. That can be really fantastic or incredibly volatile. Where Capricorn is in your chart is going to kind of give you some more information about where you'll notice that and what's happening in your chart, which parts of your natal chart are activated. It will give you a bit more information about like, is this a wonderful, brilliant improv scene, or is this like, oh my goodness, blooper reels? Either are possible. On the beginning of the week, part of this like new thing we're starting has to do with Jupiter and Pluto. As Jupiter moves into Aries, it's kind of like the crescent moon of the Jupiter-Pluto cycle. So if we think about like a new moon, we're like, we don't know what's happening yet. The seeds hasn't emerged. Ideas are still forming. That's what's going on between Jupiter, our expansion, our vision, and Pluto, that deep transformation faculty. And so starting off this week with this kind of like, all right, you started the process. You had a vision, you committed to it, you said yes to something, you said no to something else, and now your life is being transformed as a result of those actions. This week, we start to see how that plays out. And so Monday the 12th, this is Pacific time zone time here, 10:11 a.m. Time zone, calculate that one, but 10:11 a.m. for folks on the West Coast, we have Sun-Saturn sextile. And that's that moment, I think, Amanda, you were speaking about that disillusionment. Saturn's the one there that's like, your whole lifetime, when you're on your deathbed, how will you think about this? Right? And it can get real easy to be like, I will feel very bad about watching Great British Bake Off, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal. But Saturn's got to hold that voice so that we don't just do it every single day. Now, the Sun and Saturn coming together, the Sun in Sagittarius is going to sextile Saturn. It's like the waning crescent moon of the Sun-Saturn cycle. So this whole last 2.5 years of Saturn moving through Aquarius, this like impulse to make and concretize our social norms, or the social norms that we believe would create the world that we want to live in, all of those drives and impulses towards the future, towards creating social structure, being illuminated in a really important way. And so Monday starts off with this moment of going, all right, what do I really want? Where am I disillusioned? What are those last little steps? Like, what can I get rid of? Where are those places where I've been holding on to something and I'm actually ready to say, I can let that go. I can start a new cycle without this coming with me. That day, let's see here. The other thing I wanted to kind of notice as we go into the evening, so kind of that friction and tension that can come. Well, let me go in order. So we've got that Sun-Saturn sextile in the beginning of the day. In the afternoon, the moon's going to trine Chiron. So there's this moment for healing. So we start off going, what do I really not like and what can I do about it? And then we move into, all right, I've got some ideas about some skills, some gifts, some wounds that I have. Here's how I can help other people not hurt this way. Let me lean into that a little bit. The moon squares the nodes, and this is kind of like wrapping up the big like eclipse kerfluffle that happens at the end of October, beginning of November. This is kind of that moment of like, okay, you've had a month to process it, you've done some movement. Let's just like get into the meat of the story. Let's talk about it more, do it. And then we go into the end of the evening and we get the moon sextiling Mars. So there's maybe some friction, some action. It could be revising our plans, kind of figuring out what we can redo. Could be some kind of tense words, arguments, maybe with ourselves, maybe with someone that we're close to. And then the moon squares Uranus. So that whole day has kind of got this like, oh, I don't like this. Something's got to give. Something's got to change if I'm going to feel good about what I'm doing. And that's kind of like the vibe for the whole week. We can get into a few little elaborations, but like that's the big one. I think Monday really starts us off, and we're just kind of unraveling the pieces from there.
What I like about what you're saying is you're reminding us, or the cosmos is reminding us, that we ride a lot of waves. And sometimes we ride a lot of waves within one day, and that they're not isolated from each other, right? Like there's this, like you said, this feeling of maybe depression or sadness and heaviness, but then that gives way to this, wow, well, I have these gifts. Like I have this wound, but I've learned from this wound. Maybe I could help others with it. I have these gifts. Maybe I could help others with it. And that then leads into a whole exploration or discovery. But it's almost like we can only get to those gifts if we allow ourselves to really feel the first part. You know, instead of, like you said, the baking show, if you're going to distract yourself out of feeling the way you're feeling, you're probably not going to miss that opportunity that comes from the angst, you know, the opportunity that comes from the tension. I want something to change. And so that it sounds to me like, again, that's sort of the drumbeat of the whole entire week that we can take with us. It's like, I'm seeing all these things. well, maybe I'm seeing them because there's something I'm meant to do about them.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this one story. I was studying with a Hawaiian kahuna on the Big Island right when I moved to Hawaii. This was 11 years ago. And this woman was amazing. And she was describing the way that the Hawaiian, basically how the villages worked, that there were all the aunties and uncles, everybody raised the children, that the elders actually were the ones who were the primary caregivers for the children because they were beyond their productive years. They were beyond their working years, and they had the wisdom and they had the patience and all the things. And the parents were the ones working because they were in the prime working years. And I was almost in tears with this like nostalgic feeling for something I never had, but something that made so much sense to me. It was like, God, I miss that thing that I never had. And I wish it was like that. And I remember raising my hand and saying something sort of similar to what I said to you at the beginning of this broadcast of like, it's so sad in some ways to hear about this and to recognize it as something that I would love to have, but that I feel is so far from my reality. I'm like thousands of miles from my family, and I live in a house by myself with these kids. And she said, well, maybe that's because you're here to do something about it. And I was like, oh, okay. It was one of those moments I felt like I got put in my place of like, instead of just, complaining about where it is, it was like, well, maybe that's why you're here. Maybe you're here to start to get us back or create that in a new way at this time. And I was like, okay, wow. But it sounds to me like that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of hearing, I went to a Pioneers conference many, many years ago, before 2012, and heard some Mayan elders speaking about the prophecies of the changing of the worlds. And, from I think Nahuatl to Spanish to English, multiple times translated, they essentially said, it's not that the world is going to end, it's that we have a choice, and there will be the end of our ability to choose between these two different paths. Like the paths will get too far apart. And what we're choosing is between like the ways of Mother Earth and the ways of technology. But it makes me think about the way that hearing you speak to what the kahuna said to you is like, well, gifts are a type of medicine. Right? Coming from like my indigenous ancestors, like medicine is a term that we would use for a lot of different types of powers or abilities or skills, or maybe we could even say some talents or medicines. Well, medicine is sacred. And if you hold or carry medicine, you have an obligation to share it. And so I hear you speaking to this, like, well, the ability to see the way it used to be, to feel what we lost in letting go of those old ways, that's a medicine. So it sounds like, yeah, you've stepped into part of that medicine is being able to taste the bitterness of this memory, this way of living that we've lost. And there's always an opportunity to bring it back in a new way.
Wow. Whew. Okay. I have chills all over my body. And we're just on Monday. Okay. So what about the rest of the week?
Tuesday, Wednesday, a lot more mellow than Monday. Really, it's like Monday, Thursday are our big, like, boom, lots of stuff days. Saturday gives us a little reprise. Tuesdays, a lot more mellow, honestly. What we've got going on is pretty much just the moon, sun, a nice little cozy trine. The moon's moving out of that opposition to Saturn. So it's this moment of like, you are feeling impulses and our awareness working in harmony. It's the closing trine. So we're kind of winding down that lunar cycle. So it's kind of this like, all right, I had the big disillusionment. I'm clear about what needs to change. I'm clear about the gifts and medicine I'm bringing forward. I'm moving towards some sort of harmony or harmonizing what I feel and how I'm like somatically digesting experiences and what I think and what I'm choosing deliberately with my consciousness. So let's go. And then the moon moves into Virgo, and we have quite a long time before the moon makes another aspect. So Tuesday is kind of this like, let it sink in, just digest, chew on it, let it marinate, whatever other type of food metaphors you want to use. That's Tuesday. Wednesday, I wrote a little note for myself, creative day or cutting through illusion. The main thing we've got going on that day is this like sun square to Neptune. So that The sun, a good key word, anytime you want to try to describe what is the sun doing? Well, the sun illuminates stuff or it shines a light on things. So you could just say, all right, we're shining a light on Neptune. We're shining a light on illusions or deception or fogginess or confusion. Or we could also think about like illusion in the way that actors have to like create and sell a very compelling illusion to get you to suspend disbelief. So we can see kind of both sides of that energy working. And so I think Wednesday is this day where, like, if you're a creative person, and even if you think you're not a creative person, like maybe you've got some like old magazines, cut them up, collage. Maybe you've got some old journals, read through them, see if you can look back on a moment you were very confused about before and see if there's some more clarity available. That kind of just like shining a light on what's there. And I think that Sun Neptune should be great for people who are engaged in some sort of creative artistic practice, especially folks who are writing or who are kind of like birthing images, so graphic design, film. If you're like a particularly narrative type of writer, or if your poetry kind of leans in a more descriptive visual sort of direction, I think any of those things are going to be really strongly supportive. And if you're not, and you're like, well, how can I use that? Watch things that speak to you visually. Like spend some time with your favorite painting and just feel how it moves you. Watch something like any sort of media that feels really immersive, even if it's just like some ASMR on YouTube, something that's relaxing. Just like let your visual and creative faculties kind of like work together.
Bear, I feel super uncool. What is ASMR?
Oh, it stands for something, something, something. Can I even? It basically means really cool, soothing sounds. So any of those like YouTube videos where people are like, I'm cutting out fabric for a suit, and you just hear like the sound of the scissors, really polarizing. If you have sensory sensitivities, you'll either be like, this is the worst thing ever. Why would anyone do that? Or like, this is the most amazing thing. I can't believe someone else loves this.
Wow.
I should have written down my acronym somewhere, but it could be pretty cool. I think if you type in like ASMR, I'm trying to think of one that's like a sound that's likely to be upsetting to people. Maybe like, yeah, cutting fabric or brushing hair or something. There's like all that type of, yeah, people cutting hair, the sound of like scissors on hair. Some people really like that.
Wow. Fascinating. Okay. Love it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's Wednesday. Thursday, I think, is my favorite day this year. And certainly, like by the point that people are watching this for sure, but even now when we're recording, Thursday is going to be the last day that the moon can see Jupiter in the sign of Pisces. For those of you who don't know, Thursday is Jupiter's day. And so, planetary magic, in the briefest way I can explain it, you can connect with the different planets, and one of the ways to access them is through the days of the week. There's planetary days, planetary hours. I have a class on it. Other people have had classes on it. I'm sure there have been classes in Astrology Hub on planetary magic. So check those out. Any day where at sunrise, that planet is in the sign where it has domicile. So like Jupiter in Pisces or Jupiter in Sagittarius. If those planets are in those signs on that right day of the week, that's a really good time to submit a petition or start building a relationship or potentially to do some different types of astrological magic. And this will be the last Thursday where we can do that with Jupiter until Jupiter moves into Cancer when Jupiter is exalted. Now that's like years away. So this is a really, really big deal. And part of why I was like, yeah, we're getting out of that steamy hot springs of our hopes and dreams, like out into the cold. We got to scamper back inside and like get some stuff done. So that sunrise moment would be 7:22 Pacific time, is also the moment that the sun is going to be near the fixed star that has to do with like healing. It's Ras Al Egg, which is associated with Asclepius. So there's like a couple really cool things happening on Thursday that are star and planetary magic related. If you're not into all that woo stuff and you like, I still want to do something cool to honor Jupiter, the last Thursday where Jupiter's in Pisces, could even just like feast. If you drink wine, have a glass of wine and like toast to Jove. It can be something very, very simple. You could study Jupiter in your chart and just say like, hey, Jupiter, what sign are you in? What house are you in? Let's have a little chat today. Or you could go a lot deeper. There's, tons of different ways that you could go about it. But I would say to anybody who's had an interest or who's thought, maybe I want to do some planetary magic, this Thursday is the big invitation to like get to know Jove a little bit better. Everybody's favorite cool sky symbol.
I just learned the Hawaiian name for Jupiter.
Yeah.
It's Ikaika.
Ikaika.
Isn't that powerful? Every time I look up at Jupiter now, I address him that way because it feels so powerful to me. But this is amazing, Bear. Anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows my journey with the telescope. The telescope that I got for my birthday in 2020, that was supposed to be an amateur, like beginner telescope that I still have not been able to figure out how to work. Gemini Brett has been here twice to help, and has helped me. He was here a little bit ago, and he finally got it to work so that I could see the 4 moons of Ikaika, Jupiter. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was breathtaking. And I can't get the image out of my head. It's like, oh my gosh, that's there all the time. And I can't see it because my eyes can't see it, but it's always there. And now I have this image. So I feel like the planets just continue to reveal themselves layer after layer after layer to us if we're paying attention, if we want to know them, and I've had to be so patient with this telescope. And I can't, now that Brett's gone, I can't use it on my own, but I did get to have that moment with it where Brett's like, I got it, I found it. And it's like, oh yes, wow, amazing.
Oh, just keep thinking of the sound. That sounds like the sound that like thunder would make from the distance.
Yeah. It's powerful, isn't it?
Oh, I want to know so much more about Ikaika and like who this being is, like to Hawaiian people. And, like,
I agree with you. It's actually it's been so hard for me to find ever since I moved here, 11 years ago. I have been, and maybe close to 12 years, I've been wanting to find someone that can translate the astrological language through the indigenous Hawaiian lens. And it's really, really, really hard to find. But I am now in this Hawaiian voyaging society. So they're actually teaching us how to do celestial navigation the way that it's been done. And so I'm learning the words, but I still don't know as much about the mythology or the understanding of the stories as I would like to. But this is the thing with astrology. It continues to reveal itself in time, and you can't be super goal oriented with it. It's like you just relax into the process of learning. It is a journey from the very beginning.
Absolutely. It's so many things coming through, and it's just like, yes, that I resonate with, like I'm Alaska Native, and that's one of the things I've been pursuing since I was a teenager with astrology, is trying to figure out like, all right, cool, that's what people like in ancient Greece said about the sky, but like, what did my people say? And it wasn't until last year I found someone's master's thesis about Alaskan Athabascan stellar astronomy, and came to find out like, oh, it's the most taboo, sacred healing knowledge, and you'd never have been told a single word about it unless you were meant to be a healer and be a keeper of stars and stories, or unless you needed that information for your healing. And if so, they tell you once and only once. And so I wonder if indigenous Hawaiians had a similar thing where like, to get from point A to point B, sure, I'll tell you what to look at and how to do this, but like the sacred wisdom, because like my people believe that when we die, we become stars. Like not just that, like, oh, like, Sirius star system, I resonate with this star system. Like, no, like that the body of your ancestor becomes a celestial body in the sky. And I don't know a ton about Hawaiian culture, but I wonder if there's something similar there, that like, that's too sacred, that's too taboo, we can't just share that information.
I would not be surprised. That it completely resonates. And I mean, I know a lot of the wisdom was lost when most of the Hawaiians died when when the Europeans came over here.
Yeah.
So 90% of the Hawaiian people died from
Yeah.
disease because of that. So there's a lot of things lost, but I also really resonate with what you're saying. Like, I think it's absolutely possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just also think it's just a reminder of the sacredness of what we get to do in this particular period of time, and the responsibility that comes with being someone who is tuned into the language of the stars and connecting with it on a daily basis, or however you have it in your practice. But yeah, wow, Bear, thank you. We're going to some like really interesting territory. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Thursday is this final day to do some serious Jupiter magic with this
Yeah.
final Jupiter alignment on Jupiter's day.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So Jupiter's going to be moving out of Pisces. I think it's like the 19th or 20th. It's almost immediately after this week is over. So like this is the last few days. It's the last Jupiter's day for sure. And to your point about, it is this last moment of Jupiter being in Pisces, but Jupiter, Ikaika, Mars, whatever name we want to use for our Thunder Sky Daddy, he's always there. They're always there. She's always there.
Yeah.
All those pronouns are correct. And I think if anything, I want to just implore people or invite people to start building a relationship. You don't even have to ask for anything or do a petition or make an altar or any of that stuff. You can just say, hey, Jupiter, I know today's your day. I'm just going to notice, just going to be open to receive and notice how you show up today and listen. I think that's how we start to understand the way the planets should speak to us, our own specific relationship with those planets, what they mean in our lives and in other people. And we start to find like really cool, weird things too with the planets. Like I've noticed that on moon days, I always want a lot of cheese. The moon is kind of associated with dairy, but like, that's an odd one. So building your own personal vocabulary with Jupiter. What feels jovial? Do you see lots of eagles? Do you like see lots of thunder or lightning? How does Jove speak to you? Friday is this fixed star thing. The tail of the Big Dipper, the moon is going to be opposite. I don't want to get too technical with fixed star stuff, but I will say that it's a neat opportunity to connect with Big Bear. The tail of the Big Bear is connected with like dreaming and protection during travel, psychic astral travel as well. So the morning of Friday into sunrise, if you wake up before sunrise, it's a good time to just like peek outside, see if you can see the Big Bear in the sky. Say hello to Mama Bear. Connect with her a little bit. Open up your heart. The day itself is going to have that very, very last moon Jupiter opposition that's exact at 11:12 a.m. on Friday the 16th. And so that's that moment of like, okay, Jupiter, here's like, I grabbed my wish from a lucky star. I've got it in my pocket. I'm ready to go, because the next time the moon sees Jupiter, Jupiter will be in Aries. And it'll be like a whole different feeling, a whole different beat, a whole different 12-year cycle of like working with Jupiter. So it's that like that last fortification of like, let's get on this path. Let's do this already. Saturday, the 17th, the big aspect is this like Mercury trine to Uranus. So we're thinking, we're strategizing, we're writing stuff down, we're communicating, and we're like, it's sudden, there's interruptions, there's surprises. My favorite words for Uranus are innovation and ingenuity. And so when you were talking about your telescope, man, I was like, maybe that would be a good day for her to like look at the instructions for the telescope again. Maybe it'll click. Maybe they'll be like, or you'll think like, who I haven't asked is this random person in my community. Maybe there's some like young person in your community who can't grow facial hair. Thinking about like Mercury is associated with like baby-faced people. Maybe there's someone like that who's like, oh yeah, I totally know how this model works. And did you try this one setting?
Wow. Yes, that would be exciting.
That Friday has got like the moon's squaring Venus and opposite Chiron, trining Mars, squaring Mercury. So what does all that mean together? It's like kind of thinking back to Monday, and there might be this little reactivation of like the thing that's a little fraught or a little bit tense, or the sticking point of the relationship, whether it's your relationship to yourself, relationship to setting boundaries, relationship to disappointing other people, and get broad with the way we understand relationship. But we're like weaving together these pieces that have to do with how we communicate, about the way that we feel in relationship with other people. And the reason those communications are happening is to like unstick something, let something like release and break so that something new can come in. And then that brings us to Saturday. And by Saturday, I mean Sunday the 18th. That's why I have my notes written this way. So Sunday the 18th, the moon's like cruising out of Libra, moving into Scorpio. And we've got a couple of like, we have a trine and a sextile. So the moon is going to trine Saturn. So that like, that bit at the beginning of the week where you're like, man, this long-term goal I have, I'm not anywhere close, and this really sucks, and I don't like it very much. Sunday comes and says like, okay, you've connected with the folks in your community who can help you. You've done some of the processing. You've taken some time to chew on this and digest on it. Like, what do you want to say and do next? How do you integrate it inside of you? And the thing that I couldn't quite figure out how to weave into talking about what transits are happening, because it's kind of this backdrop that's been going on really since September, is this drive towards understanding the values that underpin or undergird these visions that we have for the future. And so I think like that beginning of the week, this like, wake up, you've grabbed the pearl of wisdom, like, you know what matters most to you. And then comes the really challenging, scary, exhilarating, terrifying part where you just commit to it in action, and there will be consequences. You know, if you throw a ball towards a window, it might hit and bounce off, it might smash through, but either way, like, the consequence was already in motion the minute you let go of the ball to begin with. It feels like that's how this week kind of wraps up, and then like boom, it'll be solstice, it'll be 2023, like after blinking a couple times.
Wow. I love what you just said about the consequence. You know, that there's this process that's been happening since September of understanding the values that underpin the dream or the vision, which is awesome, because if you understand the values, then you can reverse engineer the thing that you're wanting to create, because it comes from those core values. But then what you said about consequences, because it's true, like when we say that sacred yes, like, I am going to go towards this dream, this is something that I want to create and experience, there are things that have to fall away. Either that, maybe that's people in our lives, maybe that's behaviors that we have allowed, maybe it's a million different things, but there are ripple effects of that sacred yes, that we need to be at a point where we're ready for that, where we're okay with that. And I'd love to know from you, Baird, like, how do you do that in your own life? How do you face something that you know there's going to be a consequence from, or from you saying yes to? How do you gear up for that? Or how do you just continue to move towards that, even though you know there's consequences?
Well, I literally do a values inventory. So way back in college, back like before you could use the internet in college, I took this like life values class. The life coach taught this like PE class, and we basically just went through and like over the course of a couple of weeks got down to a list of what are your top 10 values. Okay, now make it 5, now make it 3, now make it 1. And for me, it really, it's been 15, almost 20 years since that time. And every few years I'll go back to the last list that I physically made, and I'll go and look and say, like, is this still my number one value? Right now, what I'm doing is I'm looking at what percentage of my actions, like what percentage of my time I'm going full just nerdy accountant in a database doing this. I'm actually like doing a budget inventory audit of my time and tracking it back to my values. What percentage of my time am I engaged in enacting my values? And in doing that, it helps me to figure out like which things I'm really terrified of but matter a lot to me. If I see something that's high on the list in terms of like, I say that's a top 7 value, And then I look at my time and I go, I don't see that showing up in action anywhere. Then I take a step back and I go like, well, where are the times and spaces in my life where I could? Because one of the things I guess I really want, like, asterisk caveat for everyone listening, there are systemic things at work that oftentimes are the reason that you can't, or it's really hard, or it's inaccessible to do a thing you value. And I really want to impress that is never a reflection of inadequacy or not being there yet, or it not really mattering. That's a reflection of systemic oppression, a whole bunch of other stuff. But when it's something that you can choose, like me at home going, hey, foam roller, hey, laptop, who's getting the hot date tonight? Like, that's on me. That's not a systemic thing. And so if I value my health, I literally just look and I ask myself, I've gotten Aquarius moon, so it's a very like Saturn way of dealing with feelings, where I just go, all right, self, when you're dead, when you're almost dead, how are you going to feel when you think back to your life and you realize that you spent 3.5 months watching the Great British Bake Off instead of like giving yourself the gift of the last few months of your life being as comfortable as they could be. And this makes me think, I want to say it was Sonia Francis, astrologer coach, who gifted me this little kind of way of thinking about things. The only power that the future has is happening, it exists right now in this moment. So the decisions that you make today, yeah, they're for you in this moment, but they're also for future you. And so, it takes a while, it takes some practice. I recommend people journal for this reason, because you can like externalize this relationship with you. And then I can look back and I can go and be like, yeah, hey, Bear, 2018 Bear, you were terrified of talking to strangers. And you promised yourself you'd introduce yourself to 3 people every astrology event you went to. And look at what you did. And so now I can look and, time has passed. Like you said, you can't cheat it or rush it. But now that time has passed, I can look back and go like, wow, past Bear, you were really brave. You got over a fear and look what it's done for you. It makes it a little bit easier to look at the next fear and say, like, I can work with this. Like, I'm strong enough to do this scary thing. I'm smart enough to distinguish the difference between fear and danger. And I'm wise enough to do the thing that my future self is going to thank me for.
Bear, I feel like this is such a drumbeat of this moment. Rick Levine and I were talking about this not long ago. This are your everyday actions aligned with the vision of your life that you're wanting to create? And what you just said is so profound and so true. Every day with every choice, it's for you in the moment, but it's for future you. And I think I shared this on a podcast recently about when I'm doing my physical daily practice these days. The thing that I start with is, this is a devotion to my future dancing, singing, and creating self. This is my devotion in this moment to me then. And that's enough to be like, okay, yeah, I don't feel like it right now, but it's so worth it. Like, I know I want to be doing all these things until the last day I have on this planet. So I need to do the things now that enable me to do those things later. And we are a sum of all those choices that we're making every single day. So I love what you're bringing up. And I love that the astrology is consistent with this message right now. I love when this happens, when there's this theme that emerges across astrologers. That's like, this is really important. Pay attention right now, because it's an opportunity that we all have. It's like in our collective zeitgeist, it's in the air. And we have such an opportunity right now to really catch the wind of this and catch what it's trying to say. I love your value inventory. That is powerful. And it gives me hope about college, which I've felt kind of like, not that, as my daughters are getting closer to it, I'm like, I don't know, like, it's a really expensive thing. I'm not totally sure it's worth the investment. But when I hear things like that you're taking classes like that to me is amazing. And those are the kinds of things that do carry you through life and give you an edge, because you're coming from a very different place when you're coming from very clear values. And so no matter what you're doing, if you're coming from that place, there's power there. So
Yeah.
that's a sidebar, but thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here. This has been such a pleasure. I've loved every minute, and
Mm.
I can, you're so aligned with the Astrology Hub, with the way that we are enjoying sharing the gifts of astrology. So I really appreciate that about you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. It really is a privilege and an honor. I say that at the end of all my sessions, and it feels just as alive here in this space. Like, thank you. The privilege of being able to carry my medicine into this space is one that I'm so grateful for, and it is an honor to be able to be in sacred service in this moment. That really is part of my spiritual practice and the way that I honor my ancestors. So thank you for being part of this like synchronicity dance with the universe that is this moment unfolding.
Oh, beautiful. Speaking of sessions, Bear is one of the astrologers on our new Astrologer Connect platform. If you sign up for, it's only available right now to people who have signed up for the Forecast event. So if you haven't signed up, but you know you want a reading, and especially if you want a reading with Bear, you can still sign up for that. So, and this is going to be a short window. We're doing a phased open of Astrologer Connect because we just want to make sure that it's totally smooth and a great experience for everybody. So if you go to astrologyhub.com/2023, sign up for the forecast, you'll be one of the people that has access to Astrologer Connect for readings. And Bear is on the platform, and we're so grateful for your wisdom and that you're sharing your medicine on our platform. Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the different things that you brought up here today. So you talked about waking up from the dream, that this is a time where we're waking up from the dream. We're starting to put the dream into action. We're seeing where there's some gaps between where we're at and where we want to go, but that's okay. Those are just signposts. You said that this is one of our last minute, we've been in these last moments of gathering the visions, tucking them away, and that 2023 is truly a new chapter. By the end of 2023, we'll be in very, very different waters. We're at the precipice of very big shifts. You said that on Monday, there's some friction. There's a new script, like we're going totally off script. And we get to decide, is this an improv scene or a blooper reel? A lot of that depends on where it's happening in your chart. I'd say go with it, whichever one it is. There's lessons in either way that it's expressing that, that we have our drives and our impulses for the future are illuminated. What do I want? What can I get rid of? There could be a couple of ideas that become crystallized for you on this day. And that this is sort of the vibe for the whole week. It's setting the tone for the whole week. You said Monday and Thursday are the big days this week.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday and Wednesday, more mellow. Tuesday, things are sinking in. We're marinating. Wednesday, this is a great creative day. Art through illusion, that we have this opportunity to illuminate. There's illumination happening, shining light on confusion. Could be a great day for collaging, journaling, creative artistic writing. If you're birthing something, poetry. So all this is very alive on Wednesday. Thursday, your favorite day of the rest of the year. The last day the moon sees Jupiter in Pisces. Last day to really harness Jupiter, Ikaika, in Pisces energy at the perfect time. This is a great day for star and planetary magic. And if you want to just do something simple, feast, have a glass of wine if that's part of what you do, toast to joy, to joviality, to the qualities of Jupiter that you want to acknowledge and bring forth more in your life. Friday, you said that this is a great opportunity to connect with the mama bear energy in the sky. This is the last moon Jupiter opposition. You've grabbed your wish, you've put it in your pocket. This is an opportunity to really fortify your path. Saturday, thinking, strategizing, communication, innovation, ingenuity. It could be a reactivation of a sticking point in relationship. I loved all the ways that you defined relationship, much more than just you and other, you and self, you and others. There's a lot of different ways to look at relationship. So there could be some reactivation of those sticking points on Saturday. Sunday, this is an opportunity to integrate inside of you the values that undergird your vision. We've grabbed the pearl of wisdom. This is just a really great day to integrate those aspects into who you are. Maybe make that value inventory that Bear does. And maybe you've already done that, but maybe revisit that. I did a course with Allison Armstrong, and it was, gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Being Extraordinary, I think was the name of it. And she talks about noble qualities, and it helps you really find your noble qualities, the noble thing, the things within you that you're committed to, that are part of what makes you noble. And I loved it. I loved the practice. And a lot of it was, she had you recognize what things like hurt you when you see them in the world, and take those and sort of flip them. And those are what you really stand for. And I heard you say something like that in the beginning of the broadcast, right?
Yes, that's so, if people resonate with that, do that on Monday when the moon's in Leo. Yes, I'm going to do that.
Very nice. Bear, thank you so much. This has been a very, very special Astrology Hub debut. I'm really looking forward to more opportunities to create with you and play with you and share your wisdom with our community. So thank you for being here today. And remember, everybody, sign up for that forecast and connect with Bear at Astrologer Connect, and we'll be seeing a lot more of Bear. I already know that.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.